Good morning, Waldo Tower. We're going to start with some good news. Anybody got good news? Anybody? The floor is open. Anything good? Tiffany.
PCPD was running school zone enforcement on Friday in front of University Academy.
That's awesome. That's great. Anybody else? Good news. There's got to be more than one person in the room with good news. Who said daffodils are blooming? Helen. That's awesome. Anybody else got anything great that they want to share?
We're still doing good in London.
That's great. That's awesome. That's awesome. Yep. I want to express my gratitude for being here today. Saturday is March 14th, 2026, and this meeting of Waldo Tower Neighborhood Association will come to order. The time is slightly after 10 o'clock. So we are only 3 months into 2026, and we are already seeing remarkable change in our neighborhood. Though it's tough sometimes to seek hopefulness in demolition, I get a feeling that we are all here today with a bit of glad, if not hopefulness, in our hearts. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, the old Roberson High School is being demolished. Finally. After 20 years of blight and unsightliness, finally, demolition as a sign of hope. At our last meeting, we talked about what a neighborhood association can do for you. Let's dive into this just briefly this morning. Over the last month, your board has had many meetings leading up to this one. I was at most, and if you know me, you know I took notes, specifically quotes all around this topic. And one was, we want to be clear about our advocacy for our neighbors. Another was, a round of applause to our neighbors for keeping your feet to the fire on this issue and not backing down. Let's hear it, Waldo. So what does this mean to us as a neighborhood association? In this defining moment, let's unpack what happened. We prioritized our relationship to champion for change on this as it affected the health of our homes and our well-being. We took action as upholders of the values of our community. We openly expressed our objections to property neglect, and we will work together to not just withstand, but to find a solution. We held scrutiny and accountability to the voices of power with the city and the landowner. Even if it took 20 years, we banded together as a unified voice to achieve this milestone. Despite the difficulties of opposition and even possible failure in front of us, we showed the ability to adapt, pivot, to recover, and to grow, even after the adversity of time told us to sit down. And while it is still unknown what will happen at the site, we will come back stronger. Through this, as a neighborhood association, we will navigate the future and thrive in this change. Neighborhood work is hard work. It takes time, dedication, and tenacity. But if Kansas City knows anything about Waldo Tower, let it be these qualities and this legacy work, and that we are so glad that we all showed up for each other for it. Our spirit won't stop, even if demolition is indeed progress. We were here for all of it. So KC, if you have questions about priority, championship, resiliency, perseverance, and adaptivity, Waldo Tower's here for it. Great job, neighbors. This is us, the best of Kansas City community, activating for change, and your neighborhood association working right along with you. We will have our speakers now. We're going to have Johnathan up here to talk about the e-tax. We're going to have Lenny talk about calendar points and volunteer opportunities. And then I will have a conclusion. So let's go ahead and start with Johnathan. Oh, Patrick Tuoehey is also here. Thank you, Johnathan.
Hey, you bet. I'm pinch hitting today. Johnathan Duncan. I'm your city council rep for the in-district 6th district. Does everyone know what the e-tax is? Show of hands. Most of you do. All right. for those who don't, because I didn't see everyone raise their hand, right? It's the 1% earnings tax. So whether you're a resident of Kansas City or you're not a resident of Kansas City, if you work in Kansas City, and it doesn't apply to retirees, right? If you're collecting a paycheck in Kansas City, you're paying the 1% earnings tax, and that is projected to fund 47% of our general revenue for this next fiscal. So that's everything, right? That's our trash, that's our dangerous buildings, right? That we fund to bring down dangerous buildings once they're condemned. That's your police, that's your fire, that's your call takers, that's everything we do. And I will say, right, I've been in this role for 3 years, that it's hard to find new revenue streams in the city of Kansas City. The state legislature does not like it when we pass new taxes. They do not like it when we add fees to things. And I've looked to try to provide a vacancy tax to abandoned buildings. We're preempted from doing that. Looking at ways that we can fund things like tearing down a Robinson school. Because that stuff costs money, and enforcement costs money. Thinking about our things that are important to Waldo, short-term rentals. I know that short-term rentals have affected the whole city, Northeast especially, but also here in Waldo. We have a department for that to enforce those rules to ensure that you don't have a short-term rental a couple short-term rentals as your neighbors. You have neighbors. Right? So all these things require funding. The e-tax is one of our main funding revenue streams to fund the city services that you rely on. The state legislature, if we don't pass this, we are preempted from putting it back on the ballot for another 5 years, meaning that that's over, right? And so thinking about the city's budget and what we fund, most of it goes to police, most of it goes to our fire department. And then all those city services that you rely on. So I won't belabor the point. I know most people know what the e-tax is. It's been around since 1963. Does anybody have any questions about the e-tax, feelings, comments, concerns?
Until very recently worked in Kansas City, Missouri. I just retired. But had several coworkers who were living in Kansas that were working where I worked in Kansas City, Missouri. And a couple of years ago, they quit having to pay the e-tax because they did not live in Kansas City, Missouri. So I'm kind of confused how that worked for them.
I'm confused how that would work for them as well.
I am too. That's what happened. None of them are paying it anymore.
I would be curious to the validity of what they said. And I think, but that's an important point, right? So we're spreading the wealth of that revenue across a bunch of folks who don't actually live in Kansas City. If we lose the e-tax, similar what they're planning to do at the state level, you have to find other revenue streams. That's going to be property taxes. That's going to be increased sale taxes. That's what they're planning to do with the state legislature to fill the hole if they remove the income tax. So taxes will go up in other places. Now, for me, I think you all pretty much know my politics and how I feel about a lot of things. I understand that the e-tax isn't perfect, right? It's a regressive tax. It's not tiered based on how much you make. It's a flat tax, 1% across the board. But I know that who is going to be hurt the most if we raise property taxes? Who's going to be hurt the most if we raise sales taxes? It's the people who are struggling to get by today. And I knocked 8,000 doors during my campaign. I talked to a lot of residents who were struggling, saying, especially seniors who were saying, another property tax increase, I'm going to have to move. I can't afford to live here anymore. And that's what we're going to see. We're going to see mass displacement in Kansas City from people who are already struggling to be here, people who have made Kansas City great, who have been here all their lives. So that's my soapbox on the e-tax. Yes.
How often have we had to vote on this? Like it feels like we just voted on this not that long ago. Is the state pushing us to have to vote more frequently on this? Because I thought it was a 10-year hold, but I'm pretty sure we voted on this less than 10 years ago.
Yes. The state legislature has mandated that we vote on it. I believe it's every 5 years. Because they want it to fail. Right. Yes, Dan. Dan Fowler, City Council Emeritus.
Thank you. Is it also true that there is a state-imposed cap on sales taxes and property taxes, so that if the e-tax goes away, there's no way we could replace all of those dollars.
Currently, that's correct. Currently, there is a cap on other taxes. If they do pass, if the state legislature passes their income tax scheme, they are removing that cap so they can increase taxes elsewhere. So again, when you remove that cap, and similar, and this is my soapbox about property taxes, we should, the Jackson County legislature should be capping property taxes for residents and tying it to inflation rather than allowing it to go out of control like we've seen 20%, 30%, 100% increases. The putting a cap on sales tax, tying it to inflation, I think is a good thing. The cap right now prevents us from increasing those taxes. If that cap is removed and there is no governing mechanism on that, then it's a free-for-all, right? Municipalities will, I promise you, if we lose this e-tax vote and we have to increase property taxes, we will, because otherwise the city won't be able to function. Yes, Frank.
If we vote this down, how quickly will we feel the pain?
There is a step down clause, and so it will gradually decline over time, but we'll feel it in the very next fiscal, for sure. I mean, again, 47% of our general revenue, that's everything, right? And we're already required that 25% of that goes to KCPD. So that's the whole shebang. I don't know what we would do, honestly, if the e-tax failed. This city, well, we were talking about road resurfacing, right? We've done record road resurfacing and road reconstruction. Pretty much our roads will be filled with potholes like they used to be back in the early 2000s, right? No funding to road reconstruction. It's going to be police. It's going to be fire. It's going to be those basic city services, and that's it, right? Police, fire, hopefully your trash. But I imagine that the trash would be reduced. Road resurfacing would come to a halt. I mean, it's such a big hole, I can't even imagine what we would do. Danny, anything else you want to add?
No, I think people need to realize that it's 77% of our general. 77% of our general fund goes to public safety. That's not just police, but that's also fire. So those will have an immediate impact because they're the biggest part of our general fund. But like Johnathan said, you can forget street resurfacing, forget improvements in a lot of areas around the city. It's just not going to happen because it's going to have to be cut back. We can't replace that tax.
Right. The only thing that I'll add is just April 7th is your last day to vote. March 24th is the beginning of early voting. Does everyone have a plan to vote in this election? I'm seeing a lot of heads shaking yes. Great. All right, Waldo. Thank you.
Thank you, Johnathan. Patrick?
Thank you.
Oh.
Does everybody, do I need the microphone? Can you hear me?
Oh, it's just the online.
Thank you. Where am I looking? There's the camera. All right. Good morning, everybody. My name is Patrick Tuoehey. I'm a senior fellow at the Show Me Institute. We're a small government. People call us libertarian. We're not technically libertarian, but that's not a inaccurate description. Show Me Institute think tank focusing on public policy. I'm also the co-founder of the Better Cities Project, which is similar, but rather than just talking about Kansas City and St. Louis, we look at cities all across the country. And I've written about the earnings tax for years, and the presentation we just heard is the presentation we hear every 5 years when it's up for a vote, which is, oh my gosh, you can't possibly do this to us. We'll have to cut everything. But even with the earnings tax in Kansas City, our mayor announced that we had a $100 million deficit. They've got that down to $55 million deficit. The problem is not revenue in Kansas City. The problem is spending. This city can't control its budget. They threatened, so I live like 4 blocks north of here, right? I ran here this morning because my alarm told me to get here later than it should have. I laugh when they threaten us with, we're going to have to cut road services or road surfacing or trash. Like, I live in Waldo. I'm not impressed with those services right now. Yet that's the first thing they threaten. They don't cut the subsidies. Kansas City, right now, in this last financial audit, Kansas City redirects $128 million a year to subsidies, to Burns and Mack's corporate headquarters, to J.E. Dunn corporate headquarters. We use our taxes to give to wealthy corporations money they don't need because those guys have figured out how to play City Hall. The previous speaker mentioned how the tax is regressive. It's absolutely regressive. You are taxed on the first dollar. Well, you all know it. You're taxed on the first dollar you earn. There's no exemption for poor families, for the working poor. The federal government may say you're exempt from federal taxes, but Kansas City still wants its cut. And it doesn't leverage against wealth in general, investment income, right? So if you're super wealthy, Dave Helling, formerly of the Kansas City Star, wrote in his blog the other day, well, the earnings tax is going to pass because the Gold Coast, the folks in Brookside, love it because they don't have to pay it, because their investment income isn't taxed. And that's part of the problem. Kansas City, in effect, uses the earnings tax as a reverse Robin Hood. We tax the poor so we can give to the wealthy. And all those groups, the Downtown Council and the Chamber of Commerce, can all be relied upon to say, we need this tax. You can't cut it. Because they have figured out how to play City Hall to get money from the government when they need it. Greg Graves, the former CEO of Burns and Mack, said in 2011, I'm proud to pay the earnings tax. 3 years later, he asked City Hall to give his company's earnings tax back to him so that he could pay for the development next to their existing world headquarters just a mile or two south from here. Thousands, hundreds of cities just like Kansas City are able to deliver basic services, including infrastructure, including police, public safety, fire, without an earnings tax. Why are we any different? What is it about the makeup of Kansas City that is any different? We all know people who have left the city. We all do, right? You live in Waldo, you've lost a neighbor or two at least of people who have moved either outside of the city or across state line. Now, part of that is public safety, which the city does not do a great job of providing. Some of that is infrastructure. A lot of that is schools. But part of it is we know people who have moved across state line or out of the city, and they immediately get themselves what? A 1% increase in their pay because they're no longer paying the earnings tax. If Kansas City wants to grow, and we are not growing as fast as our neighbors, but if Kansas City wants to grow, we have got to understand that we are in a competitive environment with Raytown, with Kearney, with Liberty, with all of Kansas. We've got to demonstrate to people that we are an attractive place to come and invest. And the earnings tax is one more reason not to do it. And we know people, even when they move here, like I said, they pick up and move across state line. Now, what happens if we phase out the earnings tax? Or if we vote against the earnings tax? It is phased out over 10 years. And the city has got to restructure how it pays for these basic services. And a lot of it will be cutting the garbage spending they're doing right now, including the subsidies, the immense amount of subsidies we give away every year. And by the way, the $128 million doesn't include the money that it's costing the school district or the county or the health fund. That is just city funds. So what I tell you is it's not going to be a panacea and it's not going to be easy, but it is necessary. And all the pro-tax side offers you is fear. We can't possibly do this. But you guys know, no matter how long you've lived in Kansas City, that if the people don't demand it, City Hall won't provide it. City Hall is not going to get any more efficient. It's not going to get any better at prioritizing. It's not going to get any better at delivering basic services unless the people say, you must do this. We demand better government. And they're going to stand up every year like they have since 2011. Like Jan Markison said, oh my gosh, I actually have this on film. Jan Markison got up and said, oh my gosh, if we cut the earnings tax, if we get rid of the earnings tax, we're going to have to cut, aid public safety, aid to the elderly. And so I said, are you saying that if the earnings tax is cut, you will vote to end all these things. Well, no, I'm saying we just need a plan. Okay, what's your plan? They don't have a plan. They haven't had a plan for 15 years, and they're not going to have a plan. They're not going to make the hard effort to get things right unless we force them to. So let me make a prediction. It is very likely that the earnings tax will be continued. Just a matter of fact, I'm not a fool. But in 5 years, we're going to be back here at this library having the exact same conversation. You're going to be just as displeased with the level of city services, and the people who come up here and urge a yes vote are going to say the exact same thing they're saying now because they said it 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and 15 years ago. And if you're happy with the city we have now, if you're happy with seeing your neighbors leave the city, if you're happy with seeing just kind of the economic decline relative to our neighbors in Kansas City, if you're happy with this, then by all means, vote yes and say, let's keep doing things the way they're doing. But if you want something different, if you want to shake up City Hall, if you want to demand more, and you want to demand a government that is run like so many other successful governments around us, Omaha, Tulsa, then you need to say, this has to stop, something has to change, we don't want to ride this trip anymore. Thank you very much for your time. Oh, and of course, I'm happy to take any questions.
Can you expand a little bit on the subsidies that the city is giving away, 120 million plus?
Yeah. So
How does that occur? And let's assume that the e-tax passes. What can we do as citizens to get that to stop? Where can we find out who's getting them, and what would be next steps for us to say, we have the e-tax, but we want that money back so that we can fund infrastructure and police and fire?
Good luck. It used to be that subsidies like this were done through the TIF Commission. And the TIF Commission is hosted by the Economic Development Corporation of Kansas City. They meet downtown. There are, let's say, 9 or 11, depending on the jurisdiction, the counties. Most of those are appointed by City Hall. And they decide, when a company applies for a subsidy, they decide, yes, we're going to grant you a TIF, we're going to let you keep your property tax, we're going to collect your property tax and then give it back to you. And you'll keep a portion of your earnings tax and a portion of your sales tax, unless it's a super TIF, in which case you get to keep all your earnings tax or property tax. And the school district gets a vote, and the mental health fund gets a vote, but the mayor always appoints the majority. So those things go through. The problem from a developer's point of view is, oh, they make you fill out so much paperwork. They make you demonstrate that you need the subsidy. You've got to go back for meetings. Guys, can't you just give us the money? Well, along comes Port KC and says, yes, you don't have to go to any more of those annoying meetings. We'll make you sign a non-disclosure agreement so the public doesn't have to get all up in your business. And we will say yes all the time, and we'll have fewer of those pesky public meetings. And that board is appointed entirely by the mayor of Kansas City. The council has no vote on who serves that. And if you look by their financial audits, which I read, you would conclude reasonably that even those board members don't read their financial audits, because for 5 years, the financial audit has said, hey guys, your internal controls over finances are a mess. But even if they were well run, Port KC is run in a conflict of interest, just like the EDC is, because they get paid through fees from saying yes to subsidies. So they have an incentive to say yes, right? The more tax money they give away, the nicer their Christmas party gets. And so that's the structure we've got in Kansas City. And when our current mayor was running for mayor, right, remember all the things he said? We're going to tamp down on this economic development. Gosh, downtown baseball is a lot like a Maserati. It's nice to have, but I don't have the money. Well, when he gets there, all of a sudden, he is saying, through his board, yes to all sorts of stuff. So what it's going to take, frankly, is electing a lot of people who are serious about tamping this stuff down. But I've got to tell you, and maybe I'm cynical, when you elect these guys, they get into City Hall, and the first thing they hear from, or the first people they hear from, are all those corporations whose headquarters they paid for around City Hall, Cordish, J.E. Dunn, the downtown council, the Chamber of Commerce, and they say, hey, you don't want to do this, we need this to develop. And by the way, here's the stickler. Sorry, and this is my last point. I'm giving you a very long answer to a short question. Here's the kicker. If I went to any members of the city council or the downtown council and I said, hey, taxes are too high, including the earnings tax, taxes are too high, and as a result, we are not getting companies and families moving in, they would say, Patrick, that's silly. Like Dave Helling just said in his post, Patrick, that's silly. Tax policy doesn't affect business attraction or retention. Yet the principle of Port KC and the principle of the Economic Development Corporation is exactly that. They say if we lower taxes for a company, we can attract them into the city or keep them from leaving. But do you and I get tax benefits of that? No. They tax us so that they can give taxes back to these big companies. And part of that is the earnings tax. So it is a web. You've got to elect more people that will have a spine and say no to the status quo. And I would say limiting them by voting no on the earnings tax is part of that restriction. Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Patrick.
Excellent.
Thank you so much for being here.
We do have another speaker with us this morning. Miss Kayla Jones is here. And I will, thank you. Oh, you're good. And I will hand the mic over to her. You are a hot mic. So there you go.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Kayla Jones. Mine's is a little bit lighter. So I work here. I work for Hartman Elementary, which is maybe a couple blocks away from here. I run the before and after school program. And so I'm just here to advertise what we have going on. I have a site council that we just started at the beginning of the year, which consists of parents and community members and other stakeholders in the community. And so the point of our site council is just to bring everybody together so we can discuss not only the issues in the school, but in the community, and just figure out ways how we can work together to combat those issues. And so I'm just here to spread the word and just looking for more people to join the site council. It's every third Thursday of every month. So it's a monthly thing, and we just come together and we discuss just things we see around our community. So our map goes, as far as my district goes, I think all the way to like 63rd, so close to the zoo. So just all around here, different resources, things we can share with our families. What else? We meet at Hartman Elementary. So right here on 8111 Oak. So we're a couple blocks away. We're literally in walking distance. So I'm just here to share. Miss Lenny's been coming. She's been helping me a whole lot. We're starting our garden again, and she's been a really great resource. And so we're actually looking for volunteers for that. So if you know anybody, if you would like to come, I have my card, or she can give you my information. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Just coming to share that information every third Thursday of every month. So this month, it's actually be this Thursday, the 19th, because we're on spring break the following week. So March 19th, we'll be having our site council meeting. So if you know anybody around, or if you would like to come, you're more than welcome. Resources, like I said, for the families, or just anything that can help the community and the school as well. So any questions? All right. That's it for me.
Thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah.
Kayla.
Thank you for having me.
Not easy work. So. Miss Lenny is going to be talking about some calendar points and some volunteer opportunities.
All right, thank you. So I'm on the membership committee. We're always looking for new volunteers to join. We've got a couple events coming up, but I'm going to start with the first one that isn't us. So we've got the 6th District Cleanup Days, known as Dumpster Days, coming up May 2nd at 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. at South Broadland Presbyterian Church. So make sure you've got that on your calendar. We're going to be doing a volunteer event. We did this last year at Happy Bottoms Diaper Bank. That's going to be Wednesday, May 27th from 6:30 to 8 p.m. So there's a sign up link on the agenda here, or you can also scan the QR code if you want to sign up to volunteer. And then we're going to be starting a walking group this spring. So now that it's getting nice outside, if you've been outside and you're walking, you notice a little bit of trash outside. A lot of things blow on recycling day, that's for sure. So we're going to be starting a walking group where we're going to be going through the neighborhood, and as we walk, picking up trash. I can tell you it's really fun because you go, wow, look at all the trash I got. We get about like 2 pounds a walk on a mile walk right now. So I think it's really nice just to kind of not be upset about walking through your neighborhood or your parks and going, gosh, like I wish someone would do something about that. You get to be the one doing something about that and also get a little exercise in. The nice benefit too of doing a little litter cleanup is that you got to bend down sometimes, and that's good for your knees. It's good for a little extra activity. So yeah, I think, did I miss anything? Perfect.